Okay, we're on the air. Yeah, so the seeming temporary nature of love. And this temporary love is exactly what I was referring to when I sent out the text that said crazy love. So this crazy love is the love that, and hey, I'm not saying anything about whether it's pleasant or anything like that, because, and especially at the beginning, at the first blush of this thing, it's very exciting and you know, but there's ups and downs, and there's conflicts and there's all sorts of things going on. But it is emotional, it is many times passionate, and surely the love that was being described in the song at one time was passionate. And so the water is wide, I can't cross over, but neither have I wings to fly. Build me a boat that can carry two. Now, in the song, the carry the two is my love and I. But in the end, because the love has faded, the last lyric is my memories and I. And so this love starts out, I mean, it certainly starts out tentatively, right? Because, it's not just full, well, maybe sometimes it's a big flash, and it could be, very intense. But it builds up to something, and then something happens. It starts to deteriorate, and the reason it starts to deteriorate is because we set these expectations on each other, and if the expectations aren't met, then the consequences have to occur, and the consequences, sometimes there's consequences we yell at each other, we fight, we carry on. Many times, though, the consequences are just going on the inside. We're not saying anything, it's just going on the inside. And every time the expectations aren't met, it's another disappointment. It's another disappointment, and it's another sign. It seems to be a sign that, has anybody got a Kleenex back there that I could have, please? It seems to be a sign that that the person doesn't care about us. And so this is, thank you very much. I was. What are you talking about? I'm up here crying like a baby. So this seems to be a sign that our love is becoming unrequited. At first, it seems so beautiful, so great, and then another thing that happens is familiarity happens, and there's that saying that a very old saying: familiarity breeds contempt. And it's not, and actually you can take that as an idea that just becoming familiar, knowing the other person, that ends up breeding contempt. But that's really not what it meant. That's not what the saying originally meant. It meant that when you become familiar in inappropriate ways, that's what breeds contempt. So in other words, what the saying actually meant was, when you don't treat people with respect, contempt occurs. And so this is what happens in the relationship, because the expectations are not being met. And it can be just the tiniest of expectations. And then one thing builds upon another. And pretty soon we've got a whole list of things. Yes, I know, we're a lot of people in here in recovery. We wouldn't actually want to call them resentments, but that's what's going on. And because resentment just means resent. These events are being replayed in our mind. And then the next time the person acts in a kind of similar way, may not even be the same way, but looks like it's getting close to being that way, we replay the old one and add that new one to the list. And it becomes, this is the way you are. And so it's conditional. This crazy love that I'm talking about is conditional love. It means that we have to perform a certain way, and we have, and everyone, and in this romantic relationship, it really is because the feelings are so tender, and they can be easily hurt. And so, when the hurt happens, it seems more severe. But it's going on all the time in all of our relationships. And what it is we have cast our movie. We have a movie going on in our minds, and we have cast our movie, and the people in our movie, those folks who come in and out of our lives, and then those who stay for a time, these romantic dalliances, they come through, and we cast them. We assign a role to them. And some of this stuff we actually talk about with each other. We talk to each other about the things that we see in the other that we love, and very seldom do we talk about the things that we see in the other that we don't like until there's a crisis, until there's tension, until we've gone over the edge. But many of the characteristics that we're looking for in the other person, we don't talk to them about it at all. Mostly because we don't even consciously think about it. These are things that are happening a lot of times below the surface, but we have a role for them to play, and our role in the movie, of course, hero, heroine, we're the top billing, and even though we think we're being selfless, but in our movie we're the top billing, and we can be the top billing and be looking to be a martyr also. So, but anyway, what's happening is that. These people in our movie are doing exactly what we want them to do. Now, this is what we don't want to accept. We think we have put them in a role, and this is the role. They're supposed to do these various things, and then they don't. And we find them wanting in one way or another. But actually, for the purposes of the movie, that is what we wanted them to do. We wanted them to act, and when I say we wanted them to act badly, when I say badly, I mean contrary to what we thought our agreement was. We want them to act that way. And because we are invested in the movie being continually about conflict, we're invested because otherwise we realize the unreality of the movie. Because it's not real. It's a projection. It's not what's really going on. It is this thing that we have decided to make out of life. So okay. So but we're in the movie. We can't just step up. It'd be nice. I think that it'd be nice if we could just walk outside the door and be outside the movie and be back where we really live. Where we really live, which is in unity, in oneness, in spirit. But that's not going to happen because right now we all have attachments to our movie. We all have attachments to this world that we have built and are building. We all have attachments to it, that we have expectations, attachments, and there is a promise that the ego is making that we're going to get what we want. If we keep on this path, that there's something right now more important to us than actually this return to love. There is something more important to us and I'm not talking about the romantic love that was in the song. There's something more important to us than the return to that ultimate love of spirit. And Course in Miracles calls them our idols. That we want these, and one of the things that is the promise of this romantic love. That's one of the things that the ego offers. One of the other things that the promise is some affluence, monetary, some prosperity, some it's one of the things that the ego promises to keep us involved in this is some whatever pleasures of the body, and I'm talking about the whole broad spectrum of them. What I want to say about that is, there's no reason to be upset about it. There's no reason to be mad about it. There's no reason to deny it. We should actually, since we're in the movie, we should actually enjoy the movie. Because it's an experience that we're going through, and we're going to go through this experience until we get to the place where we say, I want something more than this. And nobody can teach us this, and it's the reason, it's the big reason why the Course in Miracles that Ken Wapnick says that it's not for kids. It's not for young people who haven't had the experience in the world, unless, he said it's for young people who've been through a lot of trauma. But the reason it's not for kids is because you have to get to a point in your mind. You have to get to a point in your mind where you're saying, I really don't want this world anymore. I don't want this world that we have built anymore. What I want is the love of God. What I want is I want to be one with Spirit. I am willing to give this up. Now, I have been like this close to it, I don't know how many times, right? So in the meditations in the Course, this is what happens. We get quiet, and the meditations actually are leading towards that place where you're actually going to take the step to Spirit. But the ego always says, it always stops me. This is my experience. I'm always stopped right at the brink of this thing because there's something still hanging out there in the world that I want. And I'm not upset about it. I'm not mad about it. I'm going through this experience. And so here's the thing. What we want to remember is everything in our movie, everything in the world, everything in this material world is a symbol for something else. And we can interpret the symbol one of two ways. We can interpret the symbol as fear, that is representing some kind of fear, or we can interpret the symbol that is representing some kind of love. Now, there's only one kind of love. See, there's the deal. The real love is unconditional. It doesn't matter. The real love is that, and I've said many times, that I feel connected. I feel connected to my lover. Let's start with that, because that's what the song was about. I feel connected to my lover. And I want only good to happen to my lover. Now, the issue is I've set the stage for conflict because I have put them in a role that I expect them to do certain things. And as long as they do those things, then I reward them with my approval and my affection. But when they don't do those things, I'm going to punish them. Even if not overtly, I'm going to, in my mind, I'm going to see pictures. I'm going to. So, I believe that when they don't do what I think they ought to do, that they really don't love me. And that's like the ultimate thing, right? So, but the fact of the matter is, this is like so cool, and I just want to put this across. No matter how you act and no matter how they act, really, in spirit, there is only love between you. There is only love between you. All of our conditions that we have placed, the script that we have written for the movie, are telling us all the reasons that there is not love between us, especially in this moment after she said this or he did that. And every stinking time that this comes up, then this happens. And regardless of all of those things, the reality is that what exists between you is only light, only love. And the way to have the movie start being better is for us to keep reminding ourselves that that is the ultimate reality. Regardless of what the other person says, what the other person does, whether they go or whether they stay, no matter what. Now, there's some things about this movie that are practical things that we also need to consider. it's probably not, I mean, we get to decide these roles, so it's probably not a good idea to stay in close physical proximity to someone who in the movie is abusing us. I mean, if you do want to stay in, if you do decide to stay in that, just remember that it's your choice. And I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying just remember that it's your choice. You decided to stay in the midst of that abusive relationship. But also remember that the abuse is not real. In spirit, it's not real. It's real in the movie. Just like, oh yeah, now listen, just think about how emotionally attached you get to a TV show that you're watching and to the characters that you're watching in the TV show. And when your favorite character in the TV show is being mistreated by this other person in the TV show, you hate that person. You hate that mistreater, that one who's doing the bad thing. I mean, it gets to such a point that people, when they see these actors on the street, they accost them. It's not real. It's a television show, for crying out loud. I hate them. So we start to think about this life that's appearing before us as kind of like the same thing. That somebody's playing a role for a minute. And what's going on? What's going on in this role playing is we are being motivated by these two forces. One of the forces isn't even real, but we've decided to go with it. We're being motivated by fear, we're being motivated by love. So as soon as we feel threatened in a relationship, especially in a romantic relationship, and it hurts like right there. You feel it in the pit of your stomach too. Whew. Knock the breath right out of you. It's not real. It's not real. It's just a role that you're playing. And the only reason that the person can hurt you is because they're hurting in the movie. And the only reason that you're hurt is because you're afraid that you're alone. Which is the only reason that they hurt, is because the only reason that they hurt you is because they're afraid that they're alone. Underneath all the surface stuff, that's what's going on. And again, it doesn't mean that we have to put up with it in the movie. We can go cast somebody else in the role. The problem is, if we just go cast somebody else in the role without taking care of what's going on inside of us, we're just going to repeat the same scene with somebody else later down the road. It's just going to show up again. And so the solution which is presented to us in the Course is that we have to extend love. So here's, and this is in the lessons for the week. This theme will occur it started last week. It started last week, and we talked about it last week. That we think we've got all kinds of problems. We got relationship problems. We got all sort of problems, but it's all self-centeredness. That's what we need to understand, is all of our problems are self-centeredness. Yes, I know, they mistreated you. It wasn't your fault that they mistreated you, but it is your responsibility because you're putting up with it. I've said that for the last time today. But the fact is that we can change the dynamic of the relationship in the world simply by deciding that no matter what happens, I'm going to remember this feeling of connection, because somewhere along the line you felt that connection. I mean, even just not just in romantic love, but in normal everyday relationships with people. Somewhere along the line of that relationship, you actually felt that connection, that you were connected to them, that you felt that bond, that there was a bond there. So the secret is to remember that bond. The mind will go back to that feeling if you just, the feeling comes from a thought. Feelings don't just come out of nowhere. Feelings come from thoughts. So if I can recall, if I can bring myself back, if I can decide that I am going to think connection, I'm going to think bond, I'm going to have these affirmations, these phrases that I say to remind myself that we are connected, and I'm going to use that and then generate that feeling again, then I'll feel that way. And then I'm going to decide that I'm going to extend love to them no matter how they act. I'm going to, here, what Stephen Covey calls unconditional positive regard. If you don't want to say love, unconditional positive regard. And that means no matter what they do, I want only the best for them. Even if they leave. Even if they're continually emotionally unavailable. No matter what, even if they say the hurtful thing, no matter what. Again, we go back to we're choosing to stay in the thing, right? But now if we do this, if we're able to do this, what happens is it opens up this whole new possibility in the relationship. I can realize that what I want is not just what I want for myself, because that's one of the problems. See, I'm looking for the relationship to complete me. I'm looking for the relationship to make me whole. Well, you're already whole. You're already whole. You're already everything. And the person that you are looking at to complete you, they're also whole, but in the whole that I'm talking about, you are together and whole. You can never be separated. You can never be apart, even if your bodies are apart. So the thing that you want the relationship to do, which is to fill the hole inside, is already accomplished. The hole inside doesn't exist. It's just an emotion. It's an emotion that came from a thought, that came from a belief system. Then the belief system tells you you're alone. You're not. You're not. So I'm sitting here right now. There will be moments during this morning as you sit here that your mind will wander into some self